So for the last analysis of 2016, we're going to do Bruno Mars' 24 Karat Magic. Since Christmas, 24 Karat Magic has been number 4, trading spots with Side to Side. Bruno Mars, born Peter Hernandez, is no stranger to the pop scene and has had numerous hits on the Hot 100, including
I'd catch a grenade for ya. I've been locked out of heaven just the way you are.
And
When I was your man.
honestly, it's just nice to hear Mars singing about something happy. I swear both him and Adele, for that matter, love singing about being sad, usually in relation to their relationships. Who knows, maybe Mark Ronson finally got him out of his funk with something a bit more upbeat.
Uptown funk, don't give it to you.
Regardless, 24 Karat Magic is off of Mars' third studio album, 24 Karat Magic. Okay, for real though, is it that hard to come up with names for songs and albums? Hell, he could have just taken a page out of Ray Shremmerd's book and called it Mars Life or something. In all honesty, this is probably done as a marketing tool, but still. Regardless, the album was released on November 11th, 2016. The song, however, was released a month earlier, and Mars first performed it on Saturday Night Live on October 15th, along with
Ooh, junkie.
which is another track off the album. Lastly,
Versace on the floor.
was released as a promotional single,
A single that is made available to radio stations, nightclubs, music publications, and other media outlets by a record label for the express purpose of promoting a forthcoming commercial single or an entirely new album.
to further give the album some exposure. Regardless, 24 Karat Magic was the only one to make it on the charts. Speaking of which, the track originally charted only a couple of weeks after its official release at number 5. It's pretty much stayed there, given that it has moved up and down a spot or two. Mars is credited as one of the writers, as well as Christopher Brody Brown and Philip Lawrence. The producers of the track are Shampoo, Press and Curl and The Stereotypes. Yup. No, but really. Shampoo, Press and Curl is the name that Mars, Brown, and Lawrence have given themselves, basing it off of their previous moniker, the Smeezingtons. The only difference being that Brody Brown has replaced Ari Levine, hence the name change. The Smeezingtons have worked on as well as which Mars was featured on. The Stereotypes consist of Jonathan Yip, Ray Romulus, Jeremy Reeves, and Ray Charles McCullough II. They don't quite have the pop music record that the previous group has, but they still do have a couple, such as and the track is released by Atlantic Records. Given that 24 Karat Magic is a bit of a throwback in its use of funk and disco elements, it can easily be categorized as an R&B song. It's around 3:45 in length and about 107 beats per minute. It's in F minor.
The F minor scale consists of the pitches F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, and E flat. Its key signature has 4 flats.
4/4 time, except in one case, and has an extensive introduction which then goes chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, bridge, and finally chorus. Now, the reason I call the introduction extensive, even though it's only 8 bars, is that it very much stands out from the rest of the song. It has a complex harmony, which we'll go over later, and features an impressive talk box.
An effects unit that directs sound from the instrument into the musician's mouth by means of a plastic tube adjacent to their vocal microphone. The musician controls the modification of the instrument's sound by changing the shape of their mouth, vocalizing the instrument's output into a microphone.
Part done none other than by one Byron Chambers, aka Mr. Talkbox. In my opinion, they should have given him more credit, but I guess 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars featuring Mr. Talkbox is just too much for the marketing team. Regardless, Mr. Talkbox does a fantastic job in the intro.
Tonight, I just wanna take you away.
There is a hold at the end, which is quickly followed by some record scratching, a drum hit, and what I'll be calling the hype men to lead us into the song proper.
Players, put your pinky rings up.
The chorus gives us all of our instruments that we'll be hearing throughout the song. The chords, the bass,
What y'all trying?
a synth lead, and even a guitar part. As far as vocals go, there's a back and forth between Mars and his hype men,
Girls, what y'all trying to do?
in addition to Mars' layered vocals.
24 karat magic in me.
His vocals return to normal at,
Look out!
which then leads us to the first verse. Instrumentally speaking, it's very similar to the chorus, but the chords are turned down a bit so that we can clearly more hear Mars.
Guess who's back again?
In addition, the synth lead from before is completely removed. Moving back to the vocals, there is a call and response going on between Mars and, well, himself.
Showtime, 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 showtime.
As well as him being layered at both.
Guess who's back again?
And
known to give the color red the blues.
Even his backup pipe gets layered.
They don't know. Downtown, they don't know. Downtown, I bet they
Eventually we get to our first pre-chorus, which is pretty different from everything we've heard up to this point. For one thing, both the chords and bass are sustained as opposed to playing shorter notes.
I'm a dangerous
There's also a siren,
man with some money in my pocket. Keep up.
and what I'm calling echoed whoops. The hype men are also here.
Keep up.
And the pre-chorus has an overall build-up, especially emphasized by the crescendo in the chords.
Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jacking. Keep up. Players only.
The pre-chorus ends with more record scratching and hype, just like before.
Put your pinky rings up to the
Here we get our next chorus, which is identical to the first one. Luckily, Mars notifies us when the next verse starts with...
second verse for the hustlers. Hustlers. Gangsters. Gangsters.
You'll notice that the drums have been reduced to just claps, but the full drum beat comes back at...
Can I preach? I cannot preach.
Just like the first verse, there's plenty of back and forth between Mars and his hype men.
Take your sip. Do your dip.
I'd like to imagine that Mars always has his hype men with him, but they're just a voice in his head, so nobody actually hears any of it. I can picture him going to get some coffee and be like, "Alright, players, gonna party up in this place." Yeah. Do you know what you want to order, sir? Give me a mocha! Please, just give me some space! Are you talking to someone, sir? Should I tell him? What? Regardless, I'm sure that Mars does not actually hear his own musical stylings in his head. At least I sure as hell hope so. The second verse has a beat drop near the end on...
Money ain't shit. Ooh, ooh.
That'll be $6.75, sir. Money ain't shit! Ooh, ooh! Jesus, #blessed! Hey, can I take the rest of my shift off? The second pre-chorus is identical to the first and takes us to the third chorus. The third chorus is basically the same, but it has Mars improvising over himself with a talk box effect added in.
What y'all trying to do? What you trying to do?
This takes us to the third verse, which is structurally similar to the previous two, but has a back and forth between Mars and Mr. Talkbox as opposed to just his hype men.
Everywhere I go, they be like, ooh, so bad.
It also has those echoed whoops, as well as some noodling from the guitar.
So bad.
And the chords are gone from this section entirely. The verse ends with the same record scratching as before, but there's a downward motion in Mars's layered vocals.
Watch me break it down like
This leads us to the bridge and the one case mentioned earlier when I said the track was in 4/4 time. The bridge opens with a bar of 3/4
3 quarter note beats per measure.
and gives a sense of halftime.
A type of meter and tempo that alters the rhythmic feel by essentially doubling the tempo resolution or metric division/level in comparison to common time.
There's a ton going on here, such as layered vocals, shortened synth lead patterns, drum hits, pitch bends, more pitch bends, and even the echoed whoops. The chords are sustained here as well. The bridge ends with a bar of 5/4
5 quarter note beats per measure.
to get us back on track for the last chorus.
don't fight the feeling, invite the feeling, just put your pinky rings up to the
The last chorus has Mars still improvising, but the chorus is a transitionary figure that ends up repeating the chorus a second time.
put your pinky rings up to the moon.
Added here we have cymbal bell hits from the drums, as well as Mr. Talkbox added,
What y'all trying?
who ends up giving us the end to the song. The first thing in terms of accompaniments that we hear in the song is the synths that are used to play the chords in the introduction.
I just wanna take you
As said before, it's a bit more complex than what is typical in modern pop music. The chords are F minor 11, C minor 7, D flat major 7, G minor 7, and then ends with either C7 sharp 5 in the first phrase or C minor 11 in the second. Those of you who are proficient with sheet music can see that the chords aren't fully spelled out in the synth. The talkbox is actually the one hitting the roots
The note that is the basis for the chord, regardless of its inversion.
of the chord, so the synth just outlines them. The bass takes over this role for the rest of the song after the intro. The chords in the choruses and verses are a bit more simplified. The chorus and verse part goes back and forth between F minor 11 and B flat minor 7, with an ending of D flat major 7, C7 flat 9 flat 13, it's not as bad as it sounds, and back to F minor 11.
Look out! Pop, pop, bitch.
Even more simplistic are the chords in the pre-chorus.
Why Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jacking.
which is just D flat major 7 and F minor 11, before ending with B flat minor 7, C minor 7, D flat major 7. The bridge is a bit more interesting as it plays C and B flat minor 7 twice,
What's that sound?
but then further expands on the chords, making them C minor 7 and B flat minor 11 towards the end. It then ends with D flat major 7 and F minor 11,
Feeling invite the feeling just.
as well as the ending figure used in the pre-chorus. All that was one instrument, so take that in for a second. Moving on, we have the guitar,
24 karat.
which for the most part is mirroring the chords in the synth, but does have an added C minor 7 chord occasionally. The next figure is the synth lead. It's in two parts of the track, being in both the chorus and the bridge. In the chorus, it has an upward motion going E flat, F, A flat, B flat. In the bridge, it goes downward, hitting F, E flat, C. Both times it is just repeated 16th notes. That leaves us with one last part, the bass. In the verse and chorus, the bass utilizes a combination of both 8th and 16th notes.
Hustlers, gangsters, bad bitches, and your ugly ass friends. I cannot play.
It does change it up melodically in the transition to the last chorus, though. In the pre-chorus, the bass is much less complex when compared to its previously heard counterpart.
I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket.
Its rhythm is very basic and sustains the F for a while after the initial D flat. It then ends with an ascending upward figure before doing a big drop. In the bridge, it is comparable to the pre-chorus bass, as it rhythmically is the same, but instead of D flat and F, it plays C and B flat. However, it does have a quick riff it does, as opposed to just holding the B flat the entire time.
What's that?
It then goes D flat and F before repeating the figure that was at the end of the pre-chorus.
Invite the feeling just.
Now, in terms of actual melodies or themes, it is tough to actually nail down any, as the majority of the song is just spoken. However, there are a few themes that make themselves apparent simply because they're repeated so often. The most prominent of these is right before the chorus, which in terms of rhythm is just 2 16th notes on each beat that ends up going to a high G. Now, in terms of actual singing, the biggest melody is obviously
24 karat magic in the air.
the melody starts off with a repeated E flat that runs through an F to hold a G before falling back to F. That is then followed by a C, B flat, E flat figure.
Head to toe so clear.
When you look at the song overall, a lot of it can be simplified, which is done on many of the arrangements of the song, like reducing the F minor 11 chord to just F minor. Really, it depends on how fancy one wants to be with it, so if you decide to cover the song and want to use the full spellings of the chords, you now have them at your disposal. Just be sure to keep up the level of fanciness that these chords demand, so while performing it, make sure you...
Girls, what y'all trying to do? Tell me what you're trying to do. 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe so clear.
Seriously though, what happened to giving albums their own creative, unique title? We're just naming them after the songs. That makes it really hard to actually do this sort of thing, because people don't know whether I'm talking about the track or the album without me explicitly saying so. Hell, there's not even album art that distinguishes it from the single art. If you wanted to name the album after all the singles that you're shoving in here, why not just call it 24 Karat Versace on the Chunky Magic Floor?
What y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe so clear. Look out.